and I've got your pictures up. You guys can hear me and you can see the Word document here. Okay, so I put this just kind of as a reminder. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get to the place where we can volume read Hebrew. That's the goal. Um, where if you wanted to sit down and read 5 chapters in Hebrew, that you would be able to do it. Now, that's a pretty lofty goal, and we've got a ways to go before we could do that. But I want you to know that that's possible. Um, this morning, I had an Old Testament lit class, and I had about an hour and a half, and I read through the 5 chapters that we were doing in that lecture in Hebrew, and it was glorious. It made that teaching so fresh because I was able to sit down and read through it, and so that's what we're after. And so part of it is psychology, and part of it is learning the fundamentals. But if you want to get to the place where you can volume read, I want to help you get there. So that's kind of the goal. So what we're going to do, kind of the main thing you want to get down by Saturday, is you want to memorize the call perfect of katal. So this is the word kill. Hey, Antonio, good to see you logged in there.
Sorry, late.
Oh, no worries. So on Saturday, I was able to do this chart, and I saw somebody else do a chart like this, and I found it really helpful. I think you'll find it helpful too once I explain it. So this is the call perfect. So if you remember, the call just means simple. So this is the simple verb stem. Some people call it a binyan, but when you've got any verb and it's in the call stem, that's just a simple way of expressing the action. So in the paradigm word kill, it's just kill, simply kill. So that's what katal means. All these things in the red are called suffirmatives. And when you add that to the root, instead of being he kills, it turns into she kills, or you kill if you're talking about a man, or you kill if you're talking about a woman, or I kill, or they kill. And notice that's a common form, both masculine and feminine. You all men kill, you all women kill, we kill. Killed. So this is a completed action in the simple, and these endings in red are what you add to change it from being he to she. Does everyone understand that? Does that make sense to you? So what this means is, if we look at this chart, the call is the stem just of the simple action. The PL is whatever the call is times 2, or it's the call on steroids, or it's the intensified simple. So if you had like the verb kill, the PL would mean something like slaughter. So it's kill, but it's kind of the souped up version of that. The hifil is the causative of the call. So if you wanted to say he made somebody else kill somebody, you would put that in the hifil, and that's how you would do it. A lot of people find this drawing helpful because the passive of the call is the nifal. So if this is he killed, this is he was killed. If this is he slaughters, this is he was slaughtered. If this is he caused somebody else to kill, this is he was caused to kill. And then the hithpael is a reflexive. He killed himself. Okay? Does everybody understand that, or kind of understand it?
So is it passive and active?
It's so these are all active and these are all passive.
Right.
Okay? So here's, like, where do these names come from? Okay, the paradigm word in the Middle Ages, so when people taught Hebrew in the Middle Ages, they used the verb pa'al, which means to do. And so the word nifal is simply, if you took the call and put it in the passive, Pa'al is simply this verb pa'al in the intensive. So these names aren't really important as long as you know what they do. Simple, simple passive, intensive, intensive passive, causative, causative passive, reflexive. Okay, this is the solid gold thing that you'll want to know. How do you identify if something is in a different binyan? Well, the little circles represent the radicals. So we memorize this katal verb, but we could take any verb that has 3 letters and put these pointing under it, and that would make it a call. If we did nifal, that would make it a call passive. If we did eal and doubled the middle radical, that would make it the intensive. Now, this is one reason why people don't use pa'al anymore, is because you can't double a guttural. And so the paradigm word actually doesn't have the, the thing that you recognize it as. But if you've got an eal ending in a double middle radical, that's always going to be a pa'al. If you have an all and a doubled middle radical, that's always going to be a pu'al. If you have a eel, so you place a hey and then a hirik before the first radical, and you put a hirik yod between the second and third, that's always going to be a hifil. And we say hofal, but I guess technically it's a hafal, because it's that short O. So you do the hey, a short O, and then an A class, long A class, hafal. Everybody just says hofal, so that's what we'll say. But when you have that, you recognize, oh, that's a hofal. And then if you have a hith in front of it, and then a doubled middle radical, that's always going to be your hithpael. Which means that we have to memorize this one chart really well, but once we have those endings, the endings are going to be the same for every single one of these. So once we have the endings down, if we can kind of remember this, we've got the whole chart. Are you with me? Well, let's see what that looks like in real life. So here's our sight sentence. Vayidaver Elohim et kol hadivarim ha'ele lemor. Enoki Adonai Elohecha esher hotzetika me'eretz Mitzrayim mebeit evadim. Is there anything in that sentence that you recognize?
Um, Me'eretz,
And what is Me'eretz?
uh, from the earth or out of the earth.
That's exactly right. We're going to translate this land here, and this little accent mark coupled with this accent mark, that's nearly always showing you a construct. So you can add the word of. So from the land of, okay, what else do you see in there?
Mitzrayim is Egypt, isn't it?
That's right. So this is from the land of Egypt. All right. What else? Any other word that you recognize?
Is Asher, Asher, is that which?
That's exactly right. It's which. All right. What else?
Anochi is I am, and then that be the Lord.
Right. I'm the Lord. Good.
Eloheka is your God.
Right. So this is the you singular, and that's God. And so if this is God too, right? All right, good. So we've got I am the Lord your God, and a lot of sentences in Hebrew will do this where there won't be the word am. You just got to supply it. So that's what you have to do here. I am the Lord your God. Amanda picked up the who. I am the Lord your God who. And we've got from the land of Egypt. Now, if we were playing a game, those are probably all the words that you recognize. Can you guess any of the other words? And when I say guess, educated guess. Is there something you see in a word and you say, okay, could this be that? So I'm the Lord your God who, and then we've got from the land of Egypt, and we've got God here too.
The Mebate is from the house.
Good.
Mem prefix, and then avadim is servants.
Right. So we might translate it from the house of
Slavery.
And is it singular or plural?
Plural.
Plural. I am the Lord your God who something from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. And do you see you've got this little accent mark again showing your construct? That's nearly always going to tell you this word's in construct. So sometimes the vowels will change, sometimes they won't. But you're going to have this little accent mark, and it's going to give you a second clue. Hey, this is a construct, so you get to add the word of. So from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. All right, anything else?
This would be the educated guess, but after the Lord your God who brought you out of or brought you.
That's exactly right. So this is the you. And do you see how you've got your God, and then this is a formative. So in Hebrew, you don't have always a separate direct object. Sometimes you can just put the pronoun on the end of the verb. That's what's happening here, and it's the direct object, but it's attached. Now, Avery, that was a just fantastic guess. What you did is you knew these 5 words, and then you guessed, and you guessed rightly. You always want to make yourself guess, because that's the way we learn a language as children. Sometimes you're going to guess wrong, but sometimes you're going to guess right. And when you guess right, it's going to reinforce that, and you're going to, really know that. So this is you. What about this ending, T? Have you seen that T ending anywhere before?
That's the.
ending.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Avery. No, I just have it. That's the ending for I.
That's exactly right. So we know that this is I and then you. Okay, and now we're going to make a really educated guess. This verb has a hey on the front of it.
Gonna be a hopeful.
Man, that is the right thing to guess. It turns out it's a hithiel, because this is a yatsah. It's a one yod, so it's an irregular verb. But you guessed exactly right. You saw the hey preformative, and you said, okay, that's causative, and then you looked at the letter and you said, okay, that sounds like hofal, so that's a hofal, and that would be a great guess. But when you go to yatsah, which is go out, it isn't I was made to go out, it was I caused you to go out. So if this had been a regular verb, your guess would have been perfect. But even being an irregular verb, your guess is stunning because you were in the right ballpark, right? So our verb is yatsah. It's a hithiel of yatsah. So I caused you to go out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. Everybody kind of see that? Not perfectly, but you just kind of feel like you're looking in the right direction. Okay, so I am the Lord your God who caused you to go out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slaves. Okay, so all we have left then is this sentence.
I think I can get the last word in that sentence. So that's from Amar.
It's from Amar.
And we've got the lamed preposition, and you've got, I think, compensatory lengthening because of the one aleph verb.
Yeah, that's so warming my heart. So this is an infinitive construct. So if it's the preposition le plus amar in the infinitive, how would you translate that?
Like, to them he spoke. I guess it's a 3ms.
Well, it's an infinitive though. So the infinitive is the to form of the verb.
Right. So he spoke to them, or I don't know where I'm getting to them, but
Yeah. So it turns out literally it says to say,
okay.
but that doesn't really sound very English, right? God blank, blank, blank to say. So that's what it literally says, but that doesn't really sound like good English. So people will always translate this saying. So it's la plus the infinitive construct. Everybody's always going to translate it saying, and its function is exactly in English what a quotation mark is. So, quote, I am the Lord your God who caused you to go out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. So this is your quotation mark, lay more. And it's always going to appear just like that. It's always going to be spelled just like that. And if we wanted to look at Bible Works, what is this? Exodus 21. I bet if we looked up that phrase, oh, I'm hanging my computer up. Oh, there we go. Search for a phrase. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Search for a phrase. That phrase, lay more, appears 900 times in the Bible. And it's always spelled just like that. And it always just functions as a quotation mark. Which means that's a pretty cool thing to get. Let me pull y'all's picture back up. So that's going to appear everywhere, and it means just quote. And so all this is the quote. So all we have left is this. And we know Elohim already. Have we had the word davar yet? What is davar?
Declare.
Declare. Okay, so this is our verb. Do you recognize that this is the noun form of that verb? Okay, so that's called a cognate accusative. If you say, I feared a great fear, that's a cognate accusative, where you're repeating in the direct object the verb. So if we know the verb means declare, what would you think this noun means?
Man's words.
Words. That's exactly right. Okay. So somebody's going to make a wonderful guess, because if this is a verb, I see a doubled middle radical. What is it? The middle radical is doubled. Here's our cheat sheet. The middle radical is doubled.
The PL?
It's the PL. So what is the PL?
The intensive form?
Okay, so if the word means say, what would the intense form of that be?
Would it be something like proclaimed or like definitively declared or
Like, this isn't your friend saying, how are you? This is your grandfather or somebody looking you straight in the eye saying, take this to the bank. This is really, really, really important. What we're going to see is that in exegesis, being able to pick up a PL is going to be huge because they appear everywhere in the Bible and they always mean something. So in the New Covenant, when God says, I will gather you together, that's not a call. That's a PL. God isn't saying, I'm going to bring you together and you're going to be, a nice little polite group in a room. God is saying, I'm going to bring you together, and that togetherness is going to be massive. We don't have a way to say that in English. They had a way to say that in Hebrew. And that's what a PL is. When God says he's going to bless us, he doesn't say, I'm going to call bless you. He says, I'm going to PL bless you. When God talks about his name being profaned, that isn't a nifal, it's a pual. God's name wasn't just profaned, it was like mega profaned. It was like dragged through the mud. So being able to pick up a PL and pual is going to be pretty significant, and we've done it right here. That's our first PL. And you see how easy it was to see it because it has a double middle radical. And then just the endings that we've already learned. So Elohim declared et kol hadevarim. So do you see that's the word the, and then you've got a doubled, so that's the way you do the. If you can double the next word, you double it. And then this is the word these. And you see it's got the definite article as well. In Hebrew, for some reason, they like to say the words, these ones. So in Hebrew, the word these has to, if the word it modifies has the definite article, then in Hebrew, these words has to have the definite article. So that whole sentence is Elohim, like, I don't know even how you would translate that, like massively declared or gave this as an incredible promise, or Elohim looked Moses right in the eye and said all these words, saying, I'm the Lord your God, who I caused you to go out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. Now, tell me something. What are we trying to do in this class? What's our goal in this class?
To read Hebrew in bulk.
Right. So let me give you a trick of how to help yourself along that journey. Find passages like this and start incorporating them if you can, like in your time with God. It doesn't have to be this verse, but verses that are precious to you. Once you've got it, start going over that over and over again. And what's going to happen is you're going to see these words in other verses. You already like the verse. And what's going to happen is it's going to help you meditate on that. I start thinking about, why does God want me to obey the Ten Commandments? Well, because he's told me this is really important, because he said, look, I've been really good to you. I'm the one who delivered you. I brought you out of the land of Egypt. I brought you out of the house of slavery. I've been really good to you. That's why these rules maybe should be important to you. I mean, this is an incredible, helpful passage. And what we took 35 minutes and we've got this verse down. So what you want to do is you want to keep going over it enough where that becomes something you can build on, because these things, the Piels and the Hadevarim, the Anoki, the YHWH, the Asher, they appear everywhere in the Hebrew Bible. If you can get these words down, it's going to give you massive help up in reading lots of other passages. So I encourage you to, I don't know, maybe you want to put it in a plaque somewhere. Maybe, I don't know what connects with you, but what you want to do is start leveraging important verses to where it becomes second nature, where you're thinking about it every day. I can say, like, I've done that for years and years with verses, and I've never regretted 1 second, because it helps me read Hebrew, it helps me meditate on God's Word, it helps me see insights, and it keeps my brain active with the vocabulary. So I commend that to you. Any questions before we go on? We're going to go to the vocab next, but any observations or questions?
So you would recommend actually starting with verses we have English familiarity with, because I was discouraged to do that in Greek, because it's like you're just sort of filling in the blanks kind of thing.
Well, I understand why somebody would discourage you, but I feel that's bad advice, because when you learn how to ride a bike, you don't start off in the Tour de France. You start off with a little bike and training wheels, and you kind of use that to get your balance. And I'm telling you, I've been teaching languages long enough to know that the biggest challenge in language is how do I keep reading every day? And this is a way to conquer that challenge. I mean, I think next year I'll have 40 years in Greek, and I started teaching like 5 years in. I know what happens. People work really hard for a year, they learn Greek, and then the semester's over and summer starts, and everybody says, well, in 2 weeks, I'll come up with a thing, and then life happens, and it's just too busy, and you never kind of come up with a way to do it every day. This is a way to do it every day, and it works. I can tell you, I can volume read Greek and I can volume read Hebrew. In that, I can sit down and read through Romans in Greek in 2 hours. And I didn't get there by any other method than praying through verses, reading, letting the English help me. And eventually something happened where like I could read Greek, and like to open up Romans and read it through in the original language, it is so clear. And then to be able to do that in Genesis, to be able to read, 5, 10 chapters if you wanted. I don't know any other way to get to that point other than coming up with a training wheels and coming up with a way to do it every day. But if you'll do that, you'll get to a place where you can volume read, and glorious things happen. So I know that's probably not the advice other people would give, but I can say that's what worked for me. So I'm going to tell other people to do it. And I can't volume read Hebrew quite as well as I can Greek. But I can read anything from Genesis 1:1 through 2 Chronicles without a lexicon. I mean, I can just, read pages. Prophecy, a little bit harder, but that's true in English as well. I mean, poetry isn't. So, and I've read through the Hebrew Bible many, many, many times, and I just haven't found that many people who ever get to that place where they can actually sit down and volume read. And I think it's a pretty achievable goal, but you've got to come up with a strategy to get there. And so my strategy is take the verses and then let that reinforce, let that help you see. Because if you can ever see it for yourself, then you've got it. You've got that grammar. So anything else? I mean,
I'm just kind of curious. I find it interesting that, and this may just be your teaching style, I don't know if this is normal with Hebrew or not, but I find it interesting that we're learning the paradigm for the perfect first. Because like in modern languages like Spanish, German, and stuff like that, you typically learn infinitives, and then in Greek, we learn the like first person perspective, present tense. So is there a reason we're starting with perfect for Hebrew, or is it just the easiest to learn? Or
well, there are only two in Hebrew: perfect and imperfect, and neither one of those really connects to the present tense because Hebrew is kind of weird about that. But I've never thought about why I do it that way. It's just, I think it's the way my teacher, I think he started us off with the perfect. But that's a great question. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to it.
I just thought it was interesting because, like, I was thinking back on learning Greek the past few semesters, and then German during my undergrad, and getting to past tense was always, especially like in German with, you know, the delayed verbiage there. Like it was a very strange concept. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that we're starting out with that, and I just didn't know if there was a reason for it.
Do you agree with the joke that people say that a smart person can learn English in a day and French in a week and German in the rest of your life?
I would.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Well, let's go to the vocab. So you guys are seeing the vocab there. Let me get it here. That looks good to me. So we're working through the top 500 words. If you know the top 500 words in any language, supposedly you can understand 80% of every conversation. That's why we're doing the 500 words. So we're doing 15 a week. So we're at 61 through 75. So this is the word shalak. Whenever they give you a verb, a lot of grammars, they won't give you the pointing. I don't know why they don't do that. That seems kind of unhelpful to me, but when I made the list, I exported it from Logos, and so that it exported it without the vowel pointing for the verbs, and I really didn't have time to go and put them in, so that's why they don't have the pointing. But this is the word to send, so that's a different way it's used. Does anybody have a mnemonic device? Because I'll tell you mine, and it might help remember this word, but does anybody have a mnemonic device for shalak, meaning send? So there's a beautiful concept in the New Testament with the word apostolos. And apostolos, the word apostle, means the sent one. And if you do a word study on the sent one, good resources will say it reflects a Hebrew idea called a shiliach. And a shiliach in Hebrew culture is kind of like what we have when you say power of attorney. So if you were a shiliach, if you were a sent one, then you were an authorized representative. Sometimes in English, people will use the word plenipotentiary. That is someone who can conduct business in behalf of someone else. So that's what an apostle is. So when Paul calls himself an apostle, in Hebrew terminology, he's calling himself a shiliach. That's related to this word. So I don't know if that helps you remember it, but that's my mnemonic device. Send. Logos, and I got this from Logos, will show you the root shalak, and then it will show you all the other words related to that word. So I didn't quite have this set up right, because if I did, you would see that like all of these words are some different form of sending. I should have had it smaller, than we could see that. But the point is that once you memorize this triradical root, that triradical root is going to be used everywhere. Well, like this is the word Methuselah, and that looks like they die, he sends it. He sends it, they die, which is really weird, because Methuselah, when Methuselah dies, it's the year that the flood comes, if you take time to add up those numbers. And so, wow, that's what his name means. He sends it, they die. But it's showing that if you do well memorizing these first words, it's going to give you a leg up on all these other related words. Cognate words, they call that. So shalach means send. And here's a place where it's used in the text. Vayomer Adonai Elohim, and the Lord God said, behold, and you guys are going to tell me what this word is. Ha-adam. What is ha-adam?
Man.
Man, or the Adam.
The Adam.
Behold, man, or the Adam, became like echad, like one from us. To know, that's Ryan, another infinitive construct. To know good and ra, good and evil. And now, lest he send his hand and lakak, and take also from the tree of lives and eat and live forever. So that's shalach, send, lest he send his hand. When I was reading this, it was really weird, because that same construction is in the Abraham Isaac story, where he sends his hand to take the knife. And I wonder if there's some kind of intertextual echo there. A call means eat in Hebrew. And here's a place where, same verse, lest he send and eat, and he eats, a call, right? Here's all the different ways it's translated. I got this from Logos. If you go to the word study and you right click it, you can say send to PowerPoint. It will make this slide for you, perfectly formatted, so that if you're teaching on a passage, people can see the different ways. Do you all know how to do that, or would you like to see how that's done? Do you know how to do it already? Or let me take a minute and I'll show you how to do it. Let me get to Logos. Okay, sorry. Okay, so let me see where I can see your faces again. So if you come to any word like this word, merachefet, and you right click it, you click that. I think you call that the lemma, but it gives you this Bible word study. And if you click on that, um, okay. Oh, don't do that. There we go. This will come up. And if you hover over that and right click it, it will pull up a menu and it says send to PowerPoint. And if you click that, if you have PowerPoint open, it will send it to the open PowerPoint. If you don't have PowerPoint open, it will open PowerPoint and start a presentation for you. But that's a really great way of getting any of this information, you know, to your presentation. I've found that pretty helpful. Let me go back to our PowerPoint. I got about 8 things open. I'm surprised my computer isn't just smoking. It's overtaxing it. So this is eat. A call is eat. This is another place that appears the Lord, Yahweh Elohim commanded upon, and what's this word? Ha-adam, right? And then, Ryan, this is your friend, Lamor. He commanded the man Lamor, that's that saying thing, from every tree of the garden you will surely eat. So that's an infinitive absolute with an imperfect, and that's how you say surely. From every tree you will surely eat. It's almost saying you must eat from every tree. And then he's going to say, but there's one not to eat from. Im is with. I don't know what I pulled up. Oh yeah. She gave to her husband who was with her. Often when we think of Adam and Eve's temptation, we think of Eve by herself. But the text won't let us do that because the text says Adam was with her. So he's with her but silent. Another place where you might remember Im means with is in the phrase Emmanuel, God with us. That Ima is from this word. So Im is with. Turns out et can mean with too. Now tell me what the problem with this word is, meaning with. When I say et can mean with. What's the problem with that? What can et also mean?
It can also be the definite direct object signifier.
That's exactly right. And it's spelled exactly the same way. So if it doesn't have the makaf, it's going to be 8. I mean, I would say it 8. If it has the makaf, it means et. But it can be either the direct object or the word with. Now, this is that phrase, you know, Eve said, I have acquired a man with the Lord, right? With the Lord's help. That's, everybody translates it that way. Everybody except the Pseudo-Jonathan Targum So this is an ancient Aramaic translation. And do you see how the Targum is reading that? I have acquired a man, and who is that man? The man is the angel of the Lord. The Targum is reading that not as this word with. The Targum is reading it as the direct object marker, which is totally possible. You can, I mean, that is an absolutely fair way to read that sentence. She said, I've acquired Yahweh, and of course that doesn't make sense, so they make it the angel of the Lord. But they're reading this as a direct object marker. And if you read it that way, I mean, Eve almost is saying, I have given birth to God. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that she thinks Cain is going to be the seed that crushes the serpent's head. And it's interesting that here you've got a Jewish document, not a Christian document at all, and they're reading it as if it's the direct object marker. So, I don't know, what do you find interesting about that, or observations, or questions? It's kind of an...
Sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was just going to say, I had an Old Testament professor in Old Testament 1 who kind of went back over and over again to this concept that every major figure in the Pentateuch was always looking for that seed. So the first child Eve had, they thought it was going to be the seed. You know, Abraham thought Isaac was going to be the seed that was talked about, so on and so forth. And so it's kind of like, I mean, when he said it, I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. You know, when, you know, that the curse comes on and then God says, you know, you're going to have a seed that crushes, like, obviously you'd be looking for that, hoping that it comes immediately. But it's interesting to see here that there were even Jewish scholars who seem to have interpreted the text that way as well.
Yeah, it's amazing when you start looking at the Targums how Christian-friendly some of the interpretations are. I mean, there's one of the Targums in Genesis 1 that says it wasn't God who created the world, it was the Memra of God. The Word of God created the world. I forget which Targum it is, Onkelos or Pseudo-Jonathan or one of them, but like you look at that, or another Targum says God in wisdom, or even God as wisdom created the heavens and the earth, and you say, oh my goodness, that's like a hair's breadth away, you know, from what John is saying about the Logos. And I think once you get into Judaica and you start reading these things, you realize, hey, this Christian interpretation isn't as far-fetched as, you know, some people think, because it's like the building blocks were already there in Jewish culture and just developed, you know, over time. So et means with. It's the same spelling as the definite article, definite direct object. Whenever you come to this word, for every 50 times it's a direct object marker, one time will be with. So the with is by far the less often used, but it is a possibility. Yada is the word know. Anybody have a mnemonic device for yada, meaning know? If you've had Greek, do you know the word oida in Greek? I know. For some reason, oida and yada sounded similar to me when I learned Hebrew, and so I got that right away. Oida and Yada is different sounding enough that may not work for you, particularly if you haven't had Greek, but that was my mnemonic device, but it means I know. And it's, it's in this verse, and Ha'adam, the Adam, Yadad, the Eve. The Adam knew Eve, his wife. She conceived. It's interesting there. Isha is a woman. Ish is man, so Isha, that's kind of a standard woman. That's what you would expect. Here's a place where it's used. And Yahweh Elohim built. And this is the same word, house built, like same word to build an altar, build a temple. Yahweh Elohim built the rib which he took from Ha'adam. He built that into a woman. It's interesting. And do you have a minute for biblical theology? I've got a student at Bryan who is having some t-shirts made up with that. It's kind of a funny reference to my classes. Do you have a minute for biblical theology? Because I seem to be saying that all the time. So what is this? Genesis 2:22. This is really helpful. This was really helpful to me. But Yahweh, do you see how this word is the word build, like build a city, house build? Yahweh built up the rib which he took from the Adam into a woman. I want to do a lemma search in Greek. If those of you who've had Greek, can you recognize that this word is just the word build a house, and Yahweh built a house, oikodemeo? I want to show you something about this word. So I asked BibleWorks to look everywhere that oikodemeo is used. You tell me what you find interesting about this word oikodemeo. Okay, it's used. It'd help if I got it where we could actually read. So the honor is for you who believe, for those who do not believe. The stone that the builders rejected, the oikodemeoing ones, maybe this one would be a little better. But you yourselves, as living stones, are being oikodemeoed into a spiritual oikos for a holy habitation. What do you find interesting about that in terms of biblical theology? So here's our thing. When God makes Eve, he house builds the woman. And then in the New Testament, every time the word edify appears, it's this weird Greek word to house build. Okay, help me with that. Like, help me with the biblical theology of that. The person is not being house built. One speaks but doesn't house build. All things don't house build. Love house builds. Help me with that. like if you were wanting to point out elegant, plot symmetrical.
God is building his bride as he built Eve as Adam's bride.
I think that's exactly right. And would it surprise you, Amanda, if when it says one of his plura, would it surprise you if we did a lemma search and that word appears somewhere in the New Testament?
Cross.
So, hang on a second. This says Yahweh Elohim made fall a tardema on the Adam, and he slept, and he took one from his ribs, I guess, and he shut up the flesh underneath it. So, and this is going to be our word, and I see that it appears in John. Do you think we should just skip that over, or should we look at it?
We can probably check it out.
Let's see what. And then one of the soldiers with a spear stabbed him in his pleura. Now help me, is this before or after he died?
It was after.
So like he fell into the ultimate deep sleep of like death, and then he was stabbed in his pleura. Do you think that's connected at all? And then God we go back to this verse. God wounds him in his pleura, and then he takes some of his essence and he house builds that essence into a woman. Do you think there's any meta-narrative connection? A woman that he then brings to the man? Because, I don't know, help me. Is God going to bring the new Eve to the new Adam? I mean, isn't the whole story, doesn't it start with a cosmic wedding and end with a cosmic wedding? And God is bringing the new Eve to the new Adam, and instead of a negative judgment on her, it's a positive judgment that she is bone of my bone, she is flesh of my flesh. She's the feminine version of me. And why is that? Because God has taken some of my essence and built it into her. I don't know. You think that's on purpose, or you think it's an accident? Because I think it's an accident. I think that's a clever thing, but there's no way God could have thought that and built it into this story with this house build word, do you suppose? I can't even say that out loud. And I mean, this is the same word, and this is the same word of God building the temple. And do you find it interesting that the new Eve is described as a temple that God's going to live inside of? This new cubic holy of holies coming down out of heaven from God, adorned as a bride for her husband. I don't know. For me, that's why we memorize paradigms, because it helps us see stuff like that. And it helps us, I don't know, it helps me communicate the glory of that story to other people. I don't know if have I told you this story about when I was teaching Sunday school at North Shore here in Chattanooga. And have I told you the story about the little girl in that class? Have I ever told that story? I've told it to Antonio, probably maybe the rest of you haven't heard it, but I was teaching this kid's Sunday school class, and our church, North Shore, is a great church, but we have a really old building, and so, there are like 30 kids in this Sunday school room, and there are no chairs or anything. We're just all, I'm sitting on the floor with the model of the tabernacle, and all these kids are standing around me, and we're just, we're talking about, the tabernacle and what it means to this little girl. I think she was about 7 or 8 years old. She was standing right beside me, and I was on my knees with the tabernacle model, and all the kids were around me. And so I was looking her almost in the eye, but she was like taller than I was. And I asked the question, I said, were girls allowed in the tabernacle? And this little rascally boy in the back of the room said, no, girls weren't allowed in the tabernacle. And I just happened to glance over this little girl, and it was like she was shocked, and I was very close to where she was, and I could see she was about to cry, because this little boy saying, no, girls couldn't go in the tabernacle. And I was so thankful for biblical theology, because I asked the question, I said, is the tabernacle like the Garden of Eden? And, the little kid said, well, yeah, there's gold there, there's bdellium there, onyx, cherubs, God, immediate presence of God. It's, the tabernacle is the earthly representation of the Garden of Eden. And then I asked the question, I was looking at this little girl right in the face. I said, were there girls in Eden? And I could see that she was kind of coming around, and she started nodding her head, saying yes. And I said, and will there be girls in the restored Garden of Eden? And I could see she started nodding her head, saying yes. And I said, so the whole story is how you get the girl back to the Garden of Eden. And it was like I could see spiritual life go back in that little girl's body, because she realized that the Bible wasn't anti-woman, but the Bible was a meta-narrative, a love story about how God was winning the new Eve and bringing her back to the garden. And I couldn't have had that discussion, I don't think, without the original languages and knowing this house built and the new Eve and the connection. So that's my shameless plug to encourage you to continue to study the original languages, because I think it's massively practically helpful in tackling these difficult things. So he built it into a woman. He oikodemeoed it. Mitzrayim, that's from our sight sentence tonight, right? So anybody remember what that word is? Egypt. My mnemonic device is Egypt was a land of misery for Israel. Mitzrayim. I don't know if that... Hey, I've been using these mnemonic devices for 35 years. I'm not even embarrassed anymore. If it works that long, it must be okay. So Egypt. So like here's our sight verse from the house from the land of Egypt. So This word is really weird to me in Hebrew because it's the word fountain, and it's also the word eye, like in E-Y-E. So in Hebrew, the word fountain and the word eye are the same word. And I mean, here's a place where it means eye, and the eyes of the two of them were open, and they yadad, that they were naked. I don't know if we've ever talked in here about how this word naked, when it says the man and his wife were naked and unashamed, and then it says the serpent was most crafty. In Hebrew, those two words are the exact same words, spelled exactly the same way. And it's like, okay, that's weird. But when it starts talking about nakedness here, it's spelled differently. This is like exile nakedness. They saw that they were exile naked, and they sowed figs. So eyes of the two of them. I don't know what you make of that crafty and naked are the same word. But in the Proverbs, there's a Proverbs that says the cunning man covers wisdom. And that's probably a joke in Hebrew because it looks like it says the naked man covers wisdom, but because nakedness and cunning are the same, spelled exactly the same way. But I don't know what to make of that. I mean, why would the text tell us that Adam and Eve were Erumim and then that the serpent was the most Arum of God's creatures? I haven't figured that one out, but that one intrigues me. And every time I read through that passage, I wonder, like, what's going on and why, when we get here, why is it spelled differently? But I don't know. I'll leave that for you guys. Maybe you'll.
Would it? I don't know. Just a thought. Could it be something that speaks to the temporary exile?
Yeah.
And his is a permanent.
Oh, like this is like Adam and Eve being exiled to Babylon, but God's intending to bring them back in time.
Right.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. It's interesting to me that in heaven, everyone, including God, is pictured as clothed. And if heaven is like Eden 2.0, that would mean that the nakedness of Adam and Eve was never meant to be permanent. I don't know. Do you want to look at that in Bible Works? I mean, I'll show you, so you won't have to take my word and say, man, I don't know what that guy's talking about. So where would it be? Like the end of 3, or no, it's the end of 2, isn't it? So let me get your pictures back up. So do you see this? The serpent was Arum, and do you see it? It says shrewd, cunning. But if we go to the previous verse, it says, and the two of them, and can you tell that this word Arum, let me pull it up where you can see both of them at the same time. Can you see that this word Arum and this word cunning, can you see those are exactly the same words in Hebrew? And like, if we did a lemma search, I think it's like here in like 12, 13 or so. Yeah. The Arum Adam covers up knowledge. And that has to be funny because it looks like the naked man covers up knowledge. But it's clearly clever there, but it's somehow playing off of this, and I have to admit I don't quite get it. Because it's weird, because Arum, or Arumim, the plural form, is different. And this is just 5 verses later. The eyes of them were open. No, that's Satan talking there. And they knew that they were Arumim. Can you see that that's spelled differently? And if we did a lemma search on that word, that's the exile nakedness. And like, you go into exile, you were naked, and all these are like, people who are impoverishedly naked. So I don't know, but I find that interesting, and I have no idea what the solution to that is, but I'm going to think about Antonio's one. Maybe it has something to do with God intending to bring them back from exile. But I have a hard time believing that 2 words spelled exactly the same way mean 2 radically different things, and they're 5 words away in the Hebrew text. But anyway, shame.
Can I ask a question before you go on to that one?
Yes, of course.
Okay, in Genesis chapter 3, verse 6, it talks about when Eve ate the fruit. But when you go to 7, it say both their eyes were open. But Eve's eyes was not open as soon as she ate it. It was only until Adam ate it, and both of them's eyes were open at the same time. So how do you see that?
So I don't know if this is the right thing, and like, I hope you realize that when we're in a class, we're friends and we're trying to understand God's word together. And if you ask me a question, I'll tell you what I think, but there's no guarantee it's right, okay? But I'll tell you what I think about that. So the question is, why does she eat, but it isn't until he eats that it seems like, it's counted as sin. And Willie, I want to show you something in the text that you can't see in English, but that now you've taken a little Hebrew that you can see. What's the difference? So this is Eve. And here, let me get it where we can see it. Okay, so this is Eve. Elohim said, from the tree in the midst of the garden, Elohim said, "You will not eat it." And you will not touch it, lest you all die. Do you realize she's misquoted God there?
Yes, sir.
And how has she misquoted him?
He didn't say anything about touching.
So either Adam, as maybe the first legalist, said, okay, God said don't eat it, so I'm going to do one better. Don't even touch it, you know. So either he made it up or else she made it up. My money is that he made it up, that God had given a rule and then he tries to make the rule more intense, hoping that somehow that'll bring about obedience. I don't know if that's right, but I wonder. But there's another way that she misquotes it. Does anybody know? Like it massively misquotes. Let me show it to you in Hebrew, and you see if you can spot it. So,
He said, "Lest you die."
Lest you die, he said, you will surely die. That's
Surely die.
right. But there's another way that they're misquoting this. So this is the passage. And tell me if you can see it. From the tree of knowing good and evil, you will not eat from it, because on the day of, maybe you can see it here, on the day
It's
of
plural. She does the plurals.
She does it as plurals.
Mm-hmm.
God didn't say plurals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's implied, but what God said was, Adam, you man, will not eat. And she changed it, or somebody changed it to, y'all won't eat. Now, I don't think, I mean, some biblical theologians have said, you know, what would have happened if Adam, rather than siding with Eve, if Adam had said, look, Eve ate and I want to redeem her, what can I do? I think that's a fair question, but they don't do that, so it's kind of a moot question. But God never said, y'all don't eat. What God said is, Adam, you don't eat. So, Willie, I don't know. Like, obviously what she does is wrong, and, you know, she bears judgment just like he bears judgment. But it isn't until he sins that actually this command is being broken, because God didn't say, y'all don't eat. He said, you don't eat. In the day you man eat from it, you man will surely die. And when she repeats it, she doesn't repeat it in the singular, she repeats it in the plural. So I don't know. The other thing to notice in the story, did you pick this up, that their eyes were opened? But did you pick up the fact that they can't see God anymore?
Now, when I studied it, and from what I understand about it, because he had made Adam the head, and because he had made Adam the head, Eve was the helper. And even though she had violated the rules and ate of it, the responsibility didn't fall on Adam until he agreed to do what she had already done.
That's exactly right. And yeah. Yeah, so that is a fantastic observation. Let me go back to this one. Shame, I would say, but everybody pronounces it Shem. It means name. I don't know if you ever picked this up in the story, but at the Tower of Babel, they're trying to make a name for themselves, a Shem for themselves. And then in 12:3, God says, I will make your Shem great, your name great. So this is an important word. This is also where we get the term anti-Semitic. So Semitic people are the offspring of Shem, so that's kind of that's where that name came from. But means name, and it's used everywhere. All these words are used everywhere. I don't really have a mnemonic device for this one. Ezekiel 36, my favorite passage in the Old Testament. I will make my Shem great. I will sanctify my great name. And one of you is going to make my day today by looking at this word holy, and you're going to notice something about this word holy, and it's just going to totally make my day, because you're going to say, hey, that's a verb, and is it a
Pio?
A piel. And I'm going to say it is a piel. So how would you translate that?
Yeah.
Piel.
The most intense version of holy there is.
I'm gonna
Hello.
I'm gonna get a holy steam cleaner 5,000, and I'm gonna so make my great name holy. And believe it or not, this is a pual participle, and my great name that's been pual profaned among the nations. I tell you, I love the ESV. The ESV, I think, is the best English translation that we have. And the ESV blows this right here. Like, this is so bad. Let me see if I can make that case. So that's a pretty bold accusation come from, college biblical language teacher. Let me see if I can justify it. Do you know that this passage is quoted in the New Testament?
Yes.
Okay, where is it quoted?
When Lord's Prayer.
It's quoted in the Lord's Prayer. So this is what God promises. I will make holy my name. And the Lord's Prayer in both Matthew and Luke says, your name be made holy. So Ezekiel says, God says, I will make holy my name. And Jesus, as the first thing we should pray, he says, you should pray every day, God, may your name be made holy. It's a quotation of Ezekiel 36. God promises to make his name holy. Jesus says, the first petition in your prayer should be that God's name be made holy. What's interesting about that? Well, what's interesting about that to you if Jesus really is quoting Ezekiel 36 there, I mean, what do you find interesting about that, and what questions do you have about it? Because the point I'm trying to make is, if you translate it, I will vindicate the holiness of my name, is there a way that an English reader can connect that with the Lord's Prayer? No. If you had translated, I will hallow my name, or I will mega hallow my name, could anybody connect it with the Lord's Prayer? A child could connect it. So why in the world don't we do it that way? Do you know what the context of Ezekiel 36 is?
Yeah, that was what was interesting to me is the resurrection of Israel, because the next 37 is the Valley of Dry Bones, right?
That's exactly right.
Which is almost like the means and the major thing that God is doing and that Jesus is telling us to pray is to
Do it.
Oh, and yeah, I mean, that's the first priority in the Lord's Prayer, but often we look at the Lord's Prayer somewhat individualistically or just sort of repeat it in a corporate context without much thought. It seems evangelistic.
Yeah. And I don't know if we've talked about, but when Jesus breathes on the disciples in John 20, the text says he emphysios them, he ennatures them. Did you know that that's the same word that's used in Ezekiel 37 of Yahweh Spirit emphysioing the dead bodies? And would it surprise you that it's the exact same word of Yahweh emphysioing Adam and making the dirt man a real man? What's interesting, too, is that Ezekiel 36 is actually the new covenant. It's Ezekiel and Jeremiah are rough contemporaries, and Ezekiel 36 is the study notes for the new covenant passage. And when you look at Ezekiel 36, there are 20 unconditional promises that God makes to those who are in spiritual Israel. And it's I will, I will, I will, I will, I will. 20 times he says that. And the I will make my name holy is the title of that paragraph. I will make my name holy, and here's how I'm going to do it. 20 unconditional promises. I will cleanse you from all your filthinesses and from all your idols. I'll give you a new heart. I'll take away your heart of stone, give you a heart of flesh. I'll give you my spirit. I will cause you to walk in my ways. You will dwell in the land I gave your forefathers. You will be my people. I will be your God. I will wash away all your uncleannesses. I will call to the grain, make it great. I'll make the fruit of the tree and the produce of the field. Oh my goodness, that's Garden of Eden language. And then the goyim who are left round about you will know that I am the Lord. I said it and I did it.
My God.
20 times. And God says, that's how my name will be made holy. I'm going to fulfill these 20 promises. And Ryan, you hit it on the head. I mean, it's resurrecting dead Israel. And Jesus says, I want every time you open your mouth in prayer, I want you to pray that God's name would be made holy. And it's impossible for me as an English reader to make that connection because we're choosing to translate the PL, vindicate holiness, instead of make. And to me, that's unfair. I've taken out of the English reader's hands the ability to connect those two passages. And that's that's just wrong in my opinion, because once somebody realizes that God has obligated himself to do 20 things, he doesn't, you read that passage, he doesn't say, yeah, you know, if you get your act together, if you have a quiet time at least 5 days out of 7, if you, you know, what God says is, I will, 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 I will. 20 times he says that. And it's a new covenant. And then Jesus comes along and says, my blood purchased the new covenant. And it's not just for Jews. I'm going to let Gentiles have access. And it just seems so totally unfair to me that you could be the most diligent English reader in the world and you would never connect Ezekiel 36:23 with the Lord's Prayer. And it's just wrong. I mean, you tell me, is it connected or not? I mean, I will, my name, your name be made holy. This is active. This is I don't know how you could get those two passages closer. But in English, they don't even seem connected at all. That's unfair, I think. So I'm going to lobby, I'm probably going to make a YouTube video, mistakes in the ESV, and maybe it'll make somebody mad enough to at least examine the argument, because we should change that. We should change that to, I will hallow my name, or I will mega hallow my name. And then a child could connect.
I think the word vindicate is way off.
Yeah, I mean,
way.
It's not used that way elsewhere in the Old Testament. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Antonio.
It's almost like it's saying that God has someone to answer to.
And that's not it, is it?
No.
God is making this unconditional, this gracious promise that he's going to PL cleanse people, that he's going to, he's going to cleanse, he's going to mega cleanse us from all our filthinesses and from all our idols. And I don't know, I've worked about 2 years to memorize that in Hebrew. I probably read it 500 times, and I try to say it every other day. And that passage has just come alive to me, because it's like God, Jesus has handed me a document that has his name on it, where God has promised to do these incredible things. And it's all couched by saying, this is how my name is going to be made holy in the world. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but I hope I make you as mad about that passage as I am, because that's just, that is not a good translation of that verse, I don't think. Eved, we saw in our sight word, servant or slave, when it talks about the suffering servant, my servant will act wisely. Shanaim is 2. Wouldn't you know that has to be in the dual? That's kind of cool. That's Aim. The eyes of the 2 of them were opened. Ahar means after or behind, and I'm not sure which one it is here. Behold a ram behind, or behold a ram after. I wonder if God isn't playing with that a little bit. Kara, all who call on the name of the Lord will be saved. Ella, that's from our sight passage today. These words, Hadevarim Ha'ela. Oh, and what do you think about this? These are the Toledoth. Have you ever seen that before anywhere? Is it weird to you that there are 13 of them in the Old Testament and one of them in the New Testament? That's kind of interesting. And if we look at it in Hebrew, I mean, what jumps out at you about that at all? This says this is the book of the Toledoth of Adam. And this is Delitzsch's translation of the Greek New Testament into Hebrew. I don't think, it's more worthy, at all than the Greek, but it is interesting. It lets you kind of compare. What do you find interesting about any of that? I don't know. Maybe we should do it in English. That would be. What do you find interesting about that? What names are missing in that list that you would have expected to be there?
I don't see Abraham.
Abraham's name is not there. Who else's name's not there?
David.
David. Do you know what Matthew 1:1 says? This is the book of the Toledoth of Jesus Christ, son of Abraham, son of David. Like, you've been looking for that 14th Toledoth. You've been reading the Hebrew Bible backwards and forwards. You've been wondering why David's name's not there, why Abraham's not. And then you come to Matthew 1, and Matthew 1 gives you the 14th Toledoth. And it's the son of David, son of Abraham. It's like, oh my goodness, and I don't know why. I mean, this is the Greek version, and you can see the Septuagintal writer was trying to make the passage conform. He's added one of these, I think it's this one that he's added. But like, why in the world Matthew didn't say, hey, Biblos, Geneseos? I don't know, but Matthew is right. But it's like, okay, God's an artist. God is interesting, and I don't know why in the world it's like that. But there is a connection. There has to be a connection, I think, between that. Did you notice something else about this list?
The names that are in there.
Yeah.
Terah, Ishmael.
Ishmael, yeah. And
Perez.
Yeah.
Aaron. Those names.
There's something going on there.
Twice.
Hey, can I show you one other thing before we go?
Why is Esau mentioned twice?
Why is Esau mentioned twice? And who else is mentioned twice?
Oh, Shem.
Shem's mentioned twice. Okay, now I'm just kind of mad. Like, I want to know what this... But I want to show you a clue, okay? This is a shameless plug. I'm trying to get you guys hooked on biblical theology, and I'm pulling out all the stops. I'm trying to do everything I can, because if you ever get hooked on biblical theology, you're gonna keep reading Greek and Hebrew, and it's gonna pay you off. Shameless plug here. Okay, what can you tell me about the word Edom?
Red.
It's related to the word red. What else can you tell me about it? All right, let me.
Sent to Esau.
It's connected to Esau. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to search the word Edom in the Bible, and it's going to pull this up. Okay. And remember, were the dots in the original text or not? So we should turn the dots off, maybe. Okay. Can you find the word Edom for me? I'll help you. Okay. Can you read this word?
Is there?
Let me ask you this. Do you know anybody else in the story who sold their birthright for some food?
Is that Adam in that
Adam.
middle word?
That middle word. Do you see that Edom and Adam are the same word? Edom sells his birthright for food. You know somebody else who sold their birthright for food? Adam. It's impossible to connect those stories in English unless somebody helps you. Anybody can connect them once you realize it's the same word, right? And particularly if this originally was a Mater Lectionis, a mother of reading. If it's a Mater Lectionis, then Adam and Edom are exactly the same word. So anyway, that's my shameless plug. I'm trying to bribe you guys into reading Hebrew, and I will be shameless and do everything I can to convince you of that. So, any questions before we go?
I have a quick question, Dr. Davis, about specifically when you read Hebrew after all these years and you volume read, and because I'm trying to do this with Greek, but I assume it would apply to everything. But is it true, like the faster you could get to, the word Shanaim doesn't mean two. This is Shanaim and two. So I was just going to ask, when you read Hebrew, are you kind of just floating along? Because I can't imagine you can do it quickly if every word is flipped to English, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So when I say I can volume read, I'm not saying I'm an expert, because I think I probably read like a 6-year-old, born in Israel would read. I wish I were faster. I wish I were better. I wish I could pronounce it better. But when I say volume read, is like you do anything every day, eventually you're going to get pretty good at it. And what you're saying, I'm kind of hearing that essay of C.S. Lewis. Have you read that about when he was learning Greek? It's called The Great Knock, K-N-O-C. And he talks about how his tutor at Oxford told him, shoot for 80%. Don't try to be perfect, but, try to read lots of it. And in time, and Lewis talks about it, the day came when a nous wasn't a ship, but it was a slender black thing moving stealthily through the waters. And it's like, oh my goodness, if you've never read that short essay, if you type in C.S. Lewis, The Great Knock, it's exactly what you're talking about. And I've taken that exactly. I mean, volume reading will cure grammar. It will fix, lots of things, because the more you're exposed to it, the more you start seeing. And so, yes, that's exactly what I would do. Just set a goal, 2 pages every day. I did 2 pages in Greek for 6-8 months, and then I got to where I could read 4 pages, 5 pages, and you do 5 pages for a while, you get to where, you can do 10 pages in 30 minutes. And 10 pages in 30 minutes, then you're reading the Greek New Testament every 2 months. I mean, and every time you read through, the next time you read through, it's going to be half easier to do it. And so you read through 15 or 20 times. You're not going to, you're never going to get to where you can read the nautical terms in Acts 27 quickly. You're never going to be able where you can read through Jude quickly. But the rest of it, I mean, you'll get there. Job, every other word only appears once. It's hard. Even Bruce Walke says, I don't know anybody who can read through Job without lots of help. So we'll put Job to the side. There are certain prophetic things, but the rest of it, I mean, you can get where you can volume read it. You read whole pages without lexicon. And once you start doing that, every time you do it, it's going to become half easier the next time you, and it will, Ryan, it will start paying you back, because those places that trip you up, like that passage tripped that little girl up, volume reading biblical theology will give you the answer to those things. And if you can ever get to the place where it starts paying you back, then it's going to be in your blood and you'll never give it up. And so that's my shameless plea. That's what I'm trying to do, help you guys, because it will pay you back. It will pay the people who listen to you teach back for their lives, because everybody in your church doesn't need to learn Hebrew, but everybody in the church should realize that Edom and Adam are the same word. And how are they going to do that unless somebody helps them with it? Well, all right, that's what I have for you today. Scott, I'm praying for you. I think we're all praying for you, your recovery from COVID and the medication issues. So I'm really glad you were able to be here tonight. And thanks for putting up with my biblical theology. When Ike hired me, I told him, I said, I tell people that I use biblical languages as an excuse to teach people biblical theology, and he laughed. So I think that's true. So hope you have a great week, and turn in the quizzes if you can by Saturday, and I'll see you next Tuesday.
Have a good one, Doc.
Thank you, guys.
Y'all number one.
For 2 weeks anyway. We'll see how it goes the rest of the year.
Hold on to it till the SEC championship. We'll take it from there.
We'll see. We'll see. God's blessing to y'all.
All right, Doc.